Here's a little bit of old school for you. It goes a little something like this. Hey, welcome back to the Vintage Bubblegum Pod. I'm your host, Cal, and on this podcast, we talk about boy bands. We talk about girl groups. We talk about pop music from the late 90s and the early 2000s. It's a genre I've been passionate about for more than half my life, and I cannot wait to share in that passion with all of you. So today, we're talking about our first solo artist on the podcast. We're talking about Aaron Carter and his kiddo anthem, Aaron's Party. Come get it. I can't remember super specifically, but I believe that I saw Aaron 2 or 3 times in concert back in the day. And I think all of those times were either because Dream Street or Jump 5 were opening for them. That was a huge deal to me at that time. I was talking to an old friend of mine about this because I couldn't recall exactly when and where I had seen him, but I did dig up a memory that I saw him in a club, small venue situation, most likely in Philadelphia at the TLA or something like that, because I have a specific memory of him bringing this girl onto the stage from the crowd, and it was this girl I had seen at a bunch of Dream Street concerts previously. We weren't friends, but I recognized her. And he brought her up on stage and sang. He had a song on Oh Aaron called All About You. And it was like a ballad about, his life being all about the girl he's with. So he brought her up on stage to serenade her. And I guess when she went back, went to the side of the stage after the song was over, they asked her to stay because Aaron wanted her to stay after the show and stay backstage, but she did not because she came back into the audience and said this, and we were all like, oh. She was she seemed kind of rattled by it, so it's kind of a weird memory to think about this far away from the event. So it's hard to say exactly what went down there. That is one of my memories of Aaron Carter. So I think I remember first hearing about Aaron because of his association with Nick and the Backstreet Boys. Because back in the day, there were a lot of the teen magazines that would feature Aaron, stories about Aaron in these magazines next to a Backstreet Boys article, or there were pictures of Aaron with Nick, posters that you could pull out of the two of them. Inevitable that you would hear about Aaron if you were a Backstreet Boys fan. But for the life of me, in doing all of this and looking back at this mega cringe era of music, I can't really tell you what drew me to Aaron I was, because I really, I have Aaron's Party, the album, and then I have Oh Aaron. I also had another Earthquake. So I had 3 of his albums, and I really remember enjoying them, and I think I just liked Aaron because the music was fun. It was inoffensive. It was really easy to memorize and sing and dance along. Most of his songs were upbeat, easy to enjoy. I admit to losing interest in Aaron musically, probably post 2004, I would assume, around the time I turned 17, 18. I, followed his career loosely since then, and was probably like all of you, both fascinated and horrified to see what his life was becoming as an adult. Sort of an inevitable downfall, because it seemed like a lot of the teen stars of that era from like 98 to 2004 that were like really popular in my age group, they either went one of two ways. You know, you have a Hilary Duff who went on to be super successful and continued to be in music and movies and making a name for herself as an adult performer and entertainer. And then you have, you know, the Amanda Bynes that unfortunately suffered greatly due to all of the happiness they worked really hard at bringing all of us in our youth. So it's sad to see that Aaron sort of went in the latter direction and had such a traumatic life. I did watch the Fallen Idols documentary, and I'm not really going to comment about the stories because that's not what this podcast is about. But I couldn't help but I got super teary-eyed and cried a little bit when they showed Aaron's son watching him and Nick on an episode of Sesame Street. You know, Aaron's son identifying his dad, and it's just like the juxtaposition of what happened to Aaron and the wholesome nature of that Sesame Street clip. It's just like it really affected me, and I am really sorry he, wasn't meant for old bones. It's very sad. Aaron's legacy will outlive him, for better or for worse. But for a really brief period of time, he ruled the teen and tween pop scene, and that's what I'm here to remember. So come get it. Can you tell me why? To this very day, and probably on my deathbed, I will know every single word to Aaron's Party, Come Get It. I mean, I guess it's because as far as songs go, it's very linear. It tells a complete story from start to finish. So there's no really guessing what Aaron's Party is about. It's very clearly laid out for you. It's just the story of a boy who wants to have his friends over to have a party and ends up getting grounded. So Aaron came onto the music scene sometime in 1997. The first song that I remember hearing from Aaron was actually his fourth single already at the ripe old age of 8. It was his fourth single called Shake It with rappers 95 South. Very first single was a cover of a 1984 song by the Jets called Crush on You. And here's a little clip of that music video. I mean, look at this. He's a baby. Like, he's my daughter's age in this video. It's so crazy to think about. He is just a literal tiny baby. And it's unreal to think about how normal that seemed to me back then. Like, because he was a peer, we didn't really think much about it. I mean, Zach Hansen was 10 when Bop came out, and that blew up everywhere. So it was like really sort of normalized to see kids that young being thrust into the spotlight like that at this time. So Aaron's self-titled debut album was released in June of 1997 and saw gold status in Europe and Latin markets, which is crazy. A few years later, after signing to Jive Records with you-know-who, Aaron's second album, Aaron Party, Come Get It, was released in 2000. The biggest hits of his career would come from this album with songs like I Want Candy, which was in Lizzie McGuire, How I Beat Shaq, and of course Aaron's Party. The album sold over 3 million units, which is unbelievable, and was certified platinum in the year 2000. And that's really not too shabby for someone who was like 11 years old at the time. I was listening to a bunch of his songs, especially from this album, from Aaron's Party, the album. And I did note that a lot of Aaron's songs were like super main character energy. Like himself and his accomplishments, both fantastical and possibly real, were like a big focus of the narrative of his music, which I think is kind of a unique and unusual approach to songs. I mean, especially for such a young kid. It's not really surprising that he would develop some sort of crisis of identity or delusions of grandeur when for the most formative years of your life, most of your songs were about how cool and awesome you were. I mean, when you become an adult, that's got to be hard to reconcile. It's just a random note. So anyway, Aaron's Party was actually Aaron's only top 40 hit in America, and it entered the Billboard Hot 100 in August 26th of the year 2000 and peaked at 35 on the Hot 100 in November of 2000. It reached 51 in the United Kingdom and 71 in the Netherlands. I found a review that I particularly liked of this album, this song, and it's from John Azapiri from allmusic.com, and he said, like bubblegum acts of the past, the only value of the album is to be pure kitsch, and the album being the sort of album that you look back years after its release and mock with ironic glee. It seems like looking into my own personal crystal ball with that with that review there. Before Aaron's Party came out, he got his name out there touring for the Backstreet Boys and with Britney. And then after this album came out, Candy, I Want Candy was famously featured on that episode of Lizzie McGuire.
Merry Christmas, Lizzie McGuire.
And this was around that time where the whole Lindsay Lohan, Hilary Duff fight for Aaron Carter's affection was a big news story. So insane to think about happening. These two girls absolutely hating each other because of Aaron Carter. In the year 2000, Aaron had his Disney Channel in concert special with singer Samantha Mumba. She had that one song, maybe two, but watching the in concert special is a bit of a hard watch, knowing what we know now. But it is like a snapshot in time of a more innocent seeming era of his life, but it is like a bittersweet view, especially seeing his parents and all of the talk of his bond with Nick, and clips of Nick talking sweet about Aaron, and seeing their late sister Leslie hanging out with him when she also tried to break into the music industry before her death. She had a song called Like Wow that was featured on the Shrek soundtrack. In April of 2001, Aaron's third album, Oh Aaron, featured his first duet song with Nick, and a song with girl group No Secrets, and we'll talk about them sometime in the future too. He headlined his second headlining tour after Aaron's Party tour. Then he had the Aaron's Winter Party tour, which is one of the tours I attended. And then Another Earthquake came out in 2002, and it was released on the Transcontinental record label. And another note is that to his death, Aaron was very defensive of Lou Pearlman and his character. There's a documentary that Lance Bass did a couple years ago where he had Aaron on, and Aaron was very adamant that Lou was a good person and never did anything wrong. Kind of a strange behavior on that documentary from him. Talk about the Aaron's Party Come Get It music video. Like I said, the song for Aaron's Party could not be more linear, and the music video follows the same formula. It's set at his parents' house, and he sends them away so he can have a gaggle of children over to have some good, clean fun that inevitably goes awry. The video, I think, was played nonstop on the Disney Channel for several months while you were waiting for, I mean, you didn't have a choice to not watch it while you were waiting for the Even Stevens to come back on or something. So it's no wonder it was like ingrained in my brain so deeply. But rewatching it, I was cracking up. I mean, this image of Aaron on a bicycle with the high handlebars, the fur coat, and the girls flanking him, and then the green beetles. Like, between this music video and Mandy Moore's Candy, it is no wonder that I wanted one of these cars so bad. So bad. I think it's funny that he's not supposed to have a party, but he has a giant stage and disco ball with dancers in his backyard. So that makes sense. And, you know, the things that go wrong at a house party you're not supposed to have, all the typical problems, people showing up you don't know, things being spilled, breaking things, and your parents returning earlier than expected. He was kind of awkward in this music video. I've seen a couple other music videos where he's not so looking unsure of himself or like what's going on. But he was never really, he was an okay actor. I mean, he did get his own movie in 2005 called Pop Star, not to be confused with the Lonely Island movie. But I'm not going to get into that here, not today. Maybe sometime in the future we'll watch Pop Star. So besides his music in the early 2000s, Aaron had a pretty decent career until closer to the end of his life. He was on Dancing with the Stars in 2009, where he placed 5th. He did a stint on Broadway in Seussical the Musical in 2001. He was off Broadway in 2005 in The Fantastics. Aaron's final album was released as a tribute to his death, and it was titled Blacklisted. But weirdly, his management was unhappy with the release because the producer of that record is the one who released it to streaming platforms. But his management had it pulled, and it's in its entirety. It's actually currently unavailable. But they would release some tracks from Blacklisted on an EP titled Prince of Pop after his death. Aaron passed away in 2022 after a long battle with addiction and mental health problems, and his ashes currently rest in a Hollywood Hills graveyard. Again, I'm not really going to get into it here, but seeing him again like this, so young, and still hadn't had to deal with all of the trauma and tribulations that were to come in his adult life. It is, you can't really question what made him appealing to his audience. I mean, his target audience. He was, his music was fun, it was lighthearted, and it appealed to his audience and addressed his audience perfectly. It reached exactly who it was supposed to, and it was enjoyed and loved by exactly who he was marketed to. It really relied on the hope that a young teen would think Aaron was singing directly to you, or singing about things that you could relate to, or relaying fantastical stories about having fun and being a kid. I mean, that was sort of his whole message, was life's a party, have fun, you're a kid, it's all about the kids. And he had that song on the Jimmy Neutron soundtrack that was called Leave It Up to Me, and it was literally a song about being a kid and having fun. Like, that was kind of his whole theme and thesis in the early 2000s. I'm not going to do a lyric read today for Aaron's Party because it is so linear, and just watching the music video, there's not really much else to talk about with the song. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, so I can't really say much else about the song in a lyric read. And I'm also not going to do a dramatic reading, let's say out of respect for Aaron's memory. It doesn't seem appropriate. And now it's time for Brody's Corner.
Hi, people. Today we're doing Aaron's party, Aaron Carter. I can't even with this song. I don't like anything about it. My least favorite part is when he's like on his bicycle thing, like this. The music video, I can't even explain the music video, because it's just so cringe. I can't believe this is what 90s, 80s, early 2000s music was like. Because it's not good. And neither is this photo. If you take away his name and this and him, it looks fine. Because it's an American flag. I don't like that he can rap better than me. I'm glad he got rounded. I mean, I like the na-na-na-na part, but that's it. Na-na-na-na, yeah. I wouldn't, because I couldn't keep it from my parents, because I can't really keep secrets. That's just a thing that I can't do. So I don't really get the justice of the story. The moral of the story is that he's a bad kid and he gets grounded. That's it. Goodbye, people.
So thank you so much for tuning into this talk about Aaron's party. Come get it. Sorry if it seemed a little disjointed. I'm just trying to literally focus on the song and his music from the early 2000s. I don't really want to get into the drama and the sadness that followed him as an adult. It's kind of not really what I'm trying to do here with this podcast. I really just want to talk about the music. You know, I'm trying to give you a well-rounded view of these artists and their lives and what has happened to them. But really, like, my memories associated with this record, Oh Aaron, are warm and fuzzy, and nothing should take that from Aaron's memory. It's always sad when you see someone who you admired and liked and enjoyed as a kid. It's always really tough to see them humanized, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Tough to watch the passage of time change opinions and views and of somebody. But my view, as much as I can think about where Aaron ended up, all the things that happened to him, it doesn't discount his legacy as an artist and the things that he left behind that made us all happy. The stuff that made us all feel good when we were young. No amount of his personal issues can take those memories away from us. And that's what this podcast is all about. I'm getting emotional. Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Vintage Bubblegum Pod. I hope that you enjoyed it. Next week, I would really like to finally talk about our Disney Premieres Volume 1. There's songs on here that aren't boy bandy. I can't think of this era of time, this genre of music, without thinking about Disney Channel original movies, especially the first ones. And that's what this soundtrack is all about. And maybe we will watch, I'm thinking Smart House, because we talked about 5 in our first episode. And now that I'm sort of into the groove, I feel like I owe you Smart House. On my list of songs that are coming up, since we're going to talk about Smart House, I'll revamp my list a little bit, and let's talk about Bewitched in 2 weeks, since they're on the soundtrack here. That sounds good. Vintage Bubblegum Pod is a one-woman show. It's just me. I write, research, record, edit, post, social media, YouTube, Spotify. I do all of this by myself. So if you would like to support the podcast, I have a Patreon, I have a Ko-Fi, I have a Redbubble where you can buy stickers, buttons, whatever. If there's something on there you would like a Vintage Bubblegum Pod logo on, I'll hook you up. Any support you can give me would be awesome. You can check me out on TikTok and Instagram as well. If you want to talk to me, get in touch with me, give me your thoughts, feelings, opinions, you can DM me on either of those platforms. You can reach me, vintagebubblegumpod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.